Magandang hapon. Ako po si Trixie Cruz-Angeles. Paki-check naman po kung may audio tayo so that we can begin. Ah, Hi po sa mga nandito na Frosty, Happy Drag Meal, Imelda Alejo, Carmi Pinto, Christine Chan, Alim Yasin, Kiana D, ah, Yasmin Orosa Art, Going Avkik by Ian, Robert DC, Far Ida Otsoko, Rayla Torres, Zutil Persona, Jem Balansag, Steve Palaka, Mary Tiaka, John Brian Monterola, Kian D., Franklin Paz, Robert D.C., Sir Louis Noliagam, Christian Picardo, Benedict Ochoa, Colette Lomares, Suzuki, Roel Toto Manlangit, Flor de Luna Adriatico, Nelson Recana, Emily Ann Bacolod, Wanya Ete, Lady Punk, Liz Lontok, Erwin Martinez, who says the audio is good. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. All right. Here, what we want to talk about today is, we're seeing people reacting to the hacking incident. And of course, naturally, everybody is concerned. Right? But how do we act about this? Now, for those who are following or who intend to vote or idol si BBM and all that. Um, this is the statement, partially at least, issued by BBM Spox, Attorney Vic Rodriguez. And this is the important part we wanted to show. Look, nakalagay dyan, we do not intend to immediately jump into any conclusion that could lead to undermining or discrediting the preparations and the conduct of the May 9 general elections. Please remember this. Next, he says, for now, we call on the COMELEC Steering Committee and the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee to convene, initiate the probe, and work to ensure the integrity of the systems and of the forthcoming elections. Okay? Compare this to the statement of Leni Robredo and Kiko Pangilinan. Here they say, we are alarmed by the news of an alleged hacking of COMELEC servers. We ask COMELEC to immediately confirm if it happened and the extent of the compromise involved. Take note, they asked the COMELEC. We ask the Commission to immediately take steps to ensure that this or any other similar incident would not affect the integrity of the May 2022 elections. Same with most of the other candidates. Yung iba, ang sabi halimbawa ni Mayor Isko, hindi ko na po nalagay, sabi niya is, we should ask the COMELEC about what immediate action they would take in the event of hackers stealing sensitive and highly confidential information in the coming elections. Si Senator Lacson naman, sabi niya, he urged the poll body to accept help from the presidential aspirant cybersecurity experts at sinabi din niya, only through transparency and accountability can we guarantee the integrity of the upcoming elections. And then next, Senator Manny Pacquiao says we should know if the COMELEC has a plan in place for our automated polling if our automated polling system is compromised, adding that Congress should exercise its oversight power. So dalawa sila na nagsasabi doon sa oversight powers. And this is it's valuable. So balikan ko lang yung kay Attorney Vic. We do not so ang panawagan is COMELEC Steering Committee plus Joint Congressional Oversight Committee. O, mahalaga yung mga yan, ha? Bakit yan? Well, joint kasi yung Oversight Committee can at least propose legislation for immediate passage if it is necessary. So kasi kung COMELEC lang, the COMELEC is bound by whatever laws are already in place. They can make a recommendation to Congress, pero kung ang Kongreso, meaning Congress and the Senate, ay nandyan na if ever there is need for legislation that should be enacted ASAP, then that's this can happen. They can make it happen. Kumbaga. Okay? Now, first, also look at the first paragraph. We do not intend to immediately jump into any conclusion that could lead to undermining or discrediting the preparations and conduct of the May 9 general elections. Remember what I said, both in Tambayan, in Carambola, and here on the page, is that we have to balance our righteous indignation, which is correct if the hacking incident indeed happened, because COMELEC right now says that there is no evidence of that other than what MB says, Manila Bulletin Tech Team says. Right? And remember, whoever asserts must prove. So, sinasabi ng company BBM, ni na BBM himself, they're saying that we're not saying there is a hacking or not. Right? We're not going to make that conclusion. We're not going to say anything para mawalan ng credibility yung susunod na eleksyon. Okay? Bakit? Because he's in the lead. And when he wins, he wants it to be because the elections are credible and not under a cloud of suspicion. Now, yung mga behind dyan, syempre, lugi sila. Attack nila yung system now so that when BBM, if or when, nahuhuli ako eh. If BBM, when BBM wins, they can attack it and say, hindi eh, may hacking incident eh, baka kasali sila dyan, and so on. Okay? So that is what we see is going to be the strategy or what is going to go on. But take note that BBM's camp is calm. They're asserting and they're saying, we're not going to jump into any conclusions. Okay? We're not going to undermine neither the COMELEC or the preparations for the elections. We're not going to undermine and cast suspicions on the conduct of general elections. Okay? Take note, this is the person that we want to be president, and if you believe in his leadership, I suggest that we listen. Now, let me first answer yung mga commonly asked questions about this. All right, here. May mga nagsasabi, dapat hybrid elections. The problem with hybrid elections, which I agree, which should have been hybrid elections, but it requires a law. And that law should have been passed at least a year ago. Ngayon, ang sinasabi ng COMELEC, in fact, kahit 1 year ago, sinasabi ng COMELEC, mahirap na pong i-put into place kung hybrid elections kasi there is not enough time to make the preparations for that. That was their excuse before. But now, we can see if it is passed now, if a hybrid election law is passed now, masyado na talagang late. Hindi na natin kakayanin baguhin yung system, not without extending the elections. Now, extending the campaign period and postponing the elections. Why can't we postpone elections? Because elections are also set by law. The terms of office of elected officials are set by the Constitution. Hindi tayo basta-basta pwedeng mag-extend. It might be possible, ginagagawa natin for barangay elections, but certainly not for higher positions. Kasi nga, problematic yan, and it might suffer a constitutional flaw or a constitutional, it might be called into question. Kasi nga, constitutionally, malinaw kung ganong katagal lang ang term of office. And there's also a doctrine in law that says the law abhors a vacuum. Kasi matatapos na yung terms ng mga officials natin and nobody will be in charge. Well, unless you put in OICs and all that. So nakikita niyo na that this is going to be a nightmare of epic proportions if elections are postponed, which is why it is never a good idea. At least when somebody proposes it, it is almost always shut down. Not just by the not just by the executive, which has to put it into place, but also by the people themselves who could technically benefit because alam nila magulo. Paano yung mga pinirmahan nila later on? Paano yung mga how do you carry on? And so on. Okay. Next, magsuot ng red and green sa election day. Here is the problem. Bawal po ang campaigning within the polling booths or in the polling area. So usually, di ba, public school yan. Usually high school or grade school. Pag pumasok kayo at naka BBM shirt or Lacson shirt or whatever shirt, anong sasabihin sa inyo? Baka hindi kayo papasukin. And sayang boto ninyo, hindi kayo makakaboto. So, not a good idea. Campaign paraphernalia, even the colors might be called into question if you wear them in the election area, in the voting areas. Kuna ng picture ang balota. Bawal po yan. May existing rule po ang COMELEC which says bawal kunan yan because they are trying to prevent vote buying. Kasi pagka nag-vote buying, kukunan nila ng picture at ibibigay nila dun sa bumili ng boto as proof that they voted for that. Babayaran na sila after that. Not sure if I agree with this one, but that is the existing rule right now. Meanwhile, I would like to reiterate, ito ang nasa statement ni BBM. Ito ang nakikita nilang paraan to safeguard their votes and to ensure the integrity of the electoral process. Convene the COMELEC Steering Committee and Joint Congressional Oversight Committee to oversee the investigation on this alleged hacking incident. Okay. Uh, Excuse me, nagkakape ako. Huwag po mawala ng gana bumoto, and this is correct, sinasabi ni Anthony N.J. Bello. Pag ginawa natin yon, para na rin nating binigay yung boto natin sa kalaban. Let's fight for our right to be heard and our vote will be that voice. Correct. So how do we protect our candidate? By voting. Because if we vote in large amounts, no amount of cheating is ever going to be able to overturn that. Look, in 2016, the Aquino administration had all the resources. 'Di ba? Kaya nga may DAP at saka PDAF. Allegedly, dahil ito daw ang ginawang pagsusource ng pondo para sa eleksyon. And yet, naipanalo si Presidente Duterte. Which means that because napakalaki yung lead niya, the most that the other parlor could do was to make sure that Mar Rojas would come in at number 2 instead of number 5 or something like that. See, I'm not saying that they actually cheated, but what I'm saying is that is the story that makes the rounds and has gained credibility over it. Ayan, no? Miss Maggie, please lang. Baka hindi kayo payagan bumoto. Yung mga let's wear red and green shirts during election day, I'm not sure. Well, siguro kung walang nakasulat, baka posible yan. Pero dumating kayo, isang grupo, naka-red and green kayo, they might break up your group or sabihin ng mga bawal ang campaign colors or campaign paraphernalia in the voting area. Mag-ingat naman tayo para makaboto kayo. Kaya nga sinasabi namin, mag-iingat kayo pati sa mga panawagan ninyo unless alam ninyo na siguradong legal yan. Dapat nga yan ang i-hearing sa Senado at tanungin sila kung ano talaga nangyari sa hacking na yan kasi nakakaduda na rin yung mga pangyayari ngayon. Yes, nakakaduda. But again, I will draw your attention to BBM statements. We're not going to jump into conclusions. Bakit? Kasi i-weigh ninyo yung dalawang statement. Yung statement ng MBTech at saka yung statement ng COMELEC. Hindi pwedeng sabihin ni BBM, oy, may hacking daw kasi hindi pa established as a fact yung hacking na yan. So, nagiging careful sila and this is a lesson in also how we conduct ourselves. Don't jump to conclusions, pero manawagan na i-convene yung COMELEC Steering Committee and Joint Congressional Oversight Committee para sila po ang mag-imbestiga at mag-validate kung totoo ngang nangyari. Joint yan, yung pareho sila para ma-check yung COMELEC. Ito, sabi ni Al Galang, it's election day so no need to wear red or green or pink or yellow. We just want to ensure our vote is counted correctly. So, correct. Kamusta na kaya yung pakulo ng pinkish na emergency alert nung nag-file ng COC si BBM? Wala wala din silang mga traction eh. So, please make sure din na kung ano yung sinasakyan nila na issue, mag-iingat tayo dun sa kasi we don't want to help them out. Paano kung pakana ng kalaban ito? I'm not saying who. Paano kung pakana ng kalaban to cast a doubt on the integrity of the electoral process? Tutulungan ba natin sila? I think that we should take our cue from BBM and say, wala tayong papanigan, manawagan tayo ng investigasyon. Hindi natin sisiraan yung COMELEC o yung electoral process. Pero manawagan tayo, oy COMELEC, kung hindi kayo gagalaw, at hindi kayo i-check ng congressional committee, doon pwede na tayo magduda. Doon pwede tayong maglalakas ng boses sa panawagan na imbestigahan nyo naman to. Okay. Bernard Veron asks, please next time wag na mag-all caps kasi para nyo akong sinisigawan eh. Paano makakasuhan yung mga nasa COMELEC na yan sa kapabayaan? Unang-una, pwede nyo bang kasuhan for kapabayaan? Number one, ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng pagkakaso? It means you have a right and you have a remedy to protect that right. Kasi whenever there's a right, there is an obligation from somebody else to ensure that right. So kakasuhan natin yung tao na may obligasyon na protektahan yung right na yon. Ngayon, you have to be able to ensure na yung act that they committed constitutes a positive act na merong batas na nilalabag kaya nasasagasaan yung karapatan. So, yung ano ninyo is kasi ang tingin niyo lahat pwedeng kasuhan. Hindi po, it depends on what the law is. The rights, the obligations, and the law. So, pag tinatanong paano makakasuhan, assumes na pwede niyong kasuhan. Now, what are the ways that you can sue? Unang-una, how we cannot. You cannot remove COMELEC commissioners because they can only be removed by impeachment. Impeachable sila. Lower ranking officials, you can file both criminal and administrative cases. But take note, pag criminal cases, it must be proof beyond reasonable doubt. Sa admin cases, substantial evidence lang. Meaning, pwede tayong magkaso ng administrative cases assuming na they did not do their obligations as public servants and as persons who are entrusted with the safeguarding of the electoral process. Ah, okay. Mga interesting na question na ano. Sabi ni Mother Chill, because of Sarah, we're inclined to choose BBM too. However, non-appearance of BBM via Zoom or video cam was disappointing. We want the president facing head-on the challenges, especially his own DQ. Wait a minute. Why would you think you want BBM there? Huwag po tayong magpapadala. Ang purpose ng pagiging present niya was so that he can validate his lawyer's representation. Yung preliminary conference po kasi, kasama dyan yung stipulations of facts. So, kailangan masiguro ng COMELEC na yung mga abogado ni BBM ay siyang tunay na kinatawan at naiintindihan, nabigyan sila ng poder ng kanilang principal to enter into these stipulations. In the trial courts, hinihinga ng special power of attorney yung abogado kung hindi present yung kliyente. But otherwise, the client need not be present. Bakit? Yung right to be present at trial is enshrined in the Constitution. And what it means is that the accused can confront the witnesses presented against him. Now, this is preliminary conference. Walang witnesses. Stipulations of facts lang, whether or not may jurisdiction ng COMELEC, and so on. What issues will be decided by the commission, and yun. And the marking of exhibits. So bakit kailangan yung makita si BBM doon? His presence does not mean that he's facing the challenge. The fact that he is a respondent and the respondents here, the lawyers, admit the jurisdiction of the COMELEC means that BBM is already facing it. The fact that he has lawyers representing him in the COMELEC means that he is facing the case head on. So I don't think that your interpretation of his absence has basis in fact, in law, or in the rules of the COMELEC. Sabi ni Ma'am Mona, dapat nga yan ang i-hearing sa Senado at tanungin sila kung ano talaga nangyari. Nabasa ko na pala to. Sabi ni Chenks, investigation again sa wala naman napupunta. COMELEC di na natuto from 2016. Don't discount the possibility that it's also an inside job. Ito yung tanong ko. Dati nagdududa kayo na merong Smartmatic. So if there is Smartmatic, bakit kailangan pa nila mag-hack kung COMELEC yan? May Smartmatic sila eh. So, ako, hindi ako naniniwalang COMELEC yan. It's from the outside. Kung meron na silang ingrained, inbred cheating machinery in the form of Smartmatic, why would they do this? It compromises their own alleged cheating mechanism. So, yung mga ganyan na duda, it has to be rational. It has to have basis in evidence. That is why nga, si BBM and his Spox, they don't jump to conclusions. So, kahit sabihin pa natin you're suspicious, by voicing out those suspicions, you could inadvertently be helping the enemies of BBM. Sabi ni Ma'am Beatrice, Q&A, I've suggested that on some of my comments sa mga vloggers na kung pwede gawin to. To tell most people may mga mobile phone ng karamihan. Is this allowed? No ma'am, uulitin ko po, bawal pong kunan ng picture ang inyong balota. You might be thrown out and your vote invalidated. Kasi po yan ang ginagamit na ebidensya ng mga bumibili ng boto, kaya hindi po inaalaw yan. Alright? And I don't know if we can have the rules changed at this late date, which is why convening the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee, baka maaaring sila ang mag-suggest. Congress can order the COMELEC to create a rule as long as it is in accordance with the law. Pero yung kayo mismo magkukusa na kunan ng picture ang balota ninyo, your ballot might be invalidated and you will be removed from the voting precinct. Ulitin ko pa ha, don't try to take a picture of your ballot. Now, ang ginagawa ng iba, nagdadala sila ng cellphone and they take videos of the um, proceedings. Yun, there's no rule against that or wala akong nakikita na rule against that. So that might be possible. But when in doubt, if you're called out, then try to abide by the rules of the COMELEC. Ito, sabi ni Lady Punk, funny how they make a big issue of BBM not present even through Zoom kahit mainstream media, ganun din. News nila yung hindi pagpunta ni BBM. It's not even a measure of a strong leader. Correct. Okay. I'm really little worried about this victimization mentality ha. Hindi kaya may kinalaman yan sa ibang bansa? Gusto nilang imanipula para di manalo si BBM? Ma'am, I understand your fear and your conjecture. But what I'm looking for is if we have any evidence of that. Kasi ang daming haka-haka. And kahit ako, may haka-haka ako somewhere in here. I'm trying to figure out why would something like this happen. But so far, all I can see is that this benefits the enemies of whoever is not in the lead, or whoever is in the lead. Ito sinasabi ni Deng, what is the best way to do? Like I said, look at BBM's statement. One, don't jump to conclusions. We can voice our opposition once there is evidence that this is either the negligence of COMELEC. Well, first, has a hacking actually been happened? We only have the statement of the MB Tech team. Pero ang sinasabi ng COMELEC, wala pang pins yan. Wala pang usernames yan. In fact, hindi pa napoprogram yung mga counting machines. How can you say na may nakuha ng mga usernames and pins? Now, assuming that it has happened, then there is still time for the COMELEC to take cognition of this. Pero what BBM is not doing, he is not undermining the integrity of the electoral process. Napansin nyo ba yung statement ng COMELEC? Gusto nilang kasuhan yung MB Tech team for doing exactly that, trying to undermine the electoral process by getting people to lose trust in it. Yan, sabi ni Rico de la Rosa, malinis kasi conscience ng BBM Sara Camp kaya ayaw nila magbigay ng conclusion. Yan ang tunay na leader. Thanks. Para sa akin kasi, as of this moment, we still need to see on the part of the COMELEC what they can say about it. So what they're saying is that it's improbable na tungkol dun sa usernames and so on. Now, yung dun sa voter information, nangyari na yan in 2016 na ipanalo pa rin si Digong. Okay? What can you do with that kind of information? You can yung information on voters, wala kang magagawa sa pandaraya dyan. It's not manipulative eh. Yung usernames and passwords, yan, it goes into the electoral process. But what about voter information? Well, the worst that could happen is that the voters will be targeted for advertising. Still a concern. Still a concern. Ha? It's not like, yun lang ba? No, no. It's still a concern. But it doesn't go into the electoral process itself. The first, I thought COMELEC can redeem the integrity of the COMELEC. Then suddenly she shows her true colors. I'm frustrated. Um, Please be careful. Ang problema ko with COMELEC is that there's her own Twitter posts. But yung mga posts about what she said during the hearing, guys, nakita natin yon. And these statements were being taken in isolation. And she didn't make a big deal out of it during the hearing. If she makes a big deal out of it after the hearing, then that becomes problematic. Pero please take note, all of those media cards that are coming out, she said that during the hearing. But it passed us by because there was no emotion attached to him. So why can't he show up on the Zoom ganyan? At some point medyo na na rin ako, medyo na OA na ako, but not yet to the point na wait, stop that. Diba? Hindi wala pa akong ganun kasi she was merely asking questions. Hindi ba siya pwede sa Zoom? Di ba po siya pwede sa ganito? Pwede yan. The best we can do is to be vigilant and informed about everything from now until elections. Let's not make assumptions. As for the COMELEC, I hope they address this with urgency, and they will surely do that if they know people are watching. Correct. And actively involved in seeking the truth. Correct. For now, trust the process. Okay. Sabi ni Ma'am May Corpus, si Digong lang attorney, pero si BBM at iba pa. Kaya nga, ano yung sinasabi natin? We have to vote and vote in overwhelming numbers. Si Digong nakalusot. Bakit? Ang laki ng numbers niya. Ano yung supposed difference ni Lenny kay BBM? 200,000 votes lang. For a national elections, ang liit nun. Okay? So, we can only do so much, but then so can the cheating machinery can also do only so much. Right? Ang problema yung dun sa kay BBM at saka kay Lenny was the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. Under normal circumstances, all of these would have come to light. I don't think they can do that again. Kung outside yan, posibleng it's CIA globalist. I will not indulge in these conspiracy theories, not until you can provide with evidence. Now, it's okay to think that. It's okay that you read up on it and all of that. But in the end, what are you going to do with that knowledge? You can't prove it. In fact, there's no evidence. Thank you for educating everyone, sabi ni Zef Cabaron. Sayang hindi kami natuloy sa Manila Baguio this January 13. Punta kami sana sa DWIZ. Ay, sayang no, yung pandemic talaga eh. Ito, Angelo Cruzes, tas tatanggalin si BBM, tas dilaw sa... Ano ba, gusto niyo bang manalo si BBM o hindi? Kasi if you will now cast aspersions, kumbaga sisiraan natin yung integrity ng electoral process, which BBM himself doesn't want to do, who are you helping? Ito, Ma'am Pinay says, I don't actually know what kind of info was taken when COMELEC was hacked and voters' information was stolen. More than the targeted advertising, we must be concerned with identity theft as well. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. You are absolutely right on that one. Ang naisip ko lang dito ay pinakita lang ng past elections na may limit ang kaya nilang pandaraya. So if we all vote, di nila kayang dayain yan. Correct. Ito, Okay, Theodore, I hope PRRD will do something about this. What exactly do you want him to do? And how do you think he's supposed to do it? Hindi na tama ito. Every time BBM runs for higher position, may hacking incidents. Nakakadala na. First, you have to tell me how the first hacking incident related to the alleged cheating of BBM before. How? Kasi ang nakuha doon was voter information. So you're going to have to tell me how you came to the conclusion that this is something that PRRD should intervene in. Number two, yan. Pero number one, what exactly do you want PRRD to do? He cannot suspend COMELEC commissioners. He cannot fire them. They are not under his line of command. They are part of an independent constitutional body. In fact, even Congress cannot diminish their budget. They can only increase. What about yung ano? While the COMELEC employees are under the civil service, their direct command is the COMELEC commissioners. So now, you're going to have to tell me, what do you think PRRD can do about this? Sabi ni Arnel Alfaro, our part is be aware and be strong to fight for our candidates these elections. Also, do not stop campaigning. Do not give in to despair. Do not allow these kinds of news to stop you from going to the polls, to stop you from campaigning, to stop you from, yeah, from posting and talking about how optimistic we are that a new administration is about to come in. The entire purpose why the other parties want to make a big deal out of this is precisely so that we would lose confidence in the electoral process. A process, by the way, that BBM has a built-in advantage already because of the fact that he is so popular na. Okay lang kung nag-iisa kang naka-red o green shirt. Tama. Tapos walang BBM o sarapwit. Tama. Pero kapag lahat ng boboto ay naka-red o green shirt, syempre mapapansin yun at baka di kayo payagang boboto. Iisipin pa. Isipin nyo naman. Dante Hera says, basta focus lang tayo, let's vote during the elections and while waiting for the day, mangangampanya na rin tayo. Convince those still undecided to vote for BBM Sara. Convince people to go and vote. Yung mga papuntahin nyo. And in fact, it doesn't even matter kung kunwari sa household ninyo, 90% kayo BBM Sara, yung 1%, hindi. Pati yung 1% na yung papuntahin ninyo because they lend credibility to the electoral process. Splat Communication says, let's continue to be vigilant. Huwag mag-entertain ng nega thoughts. Instead, focus on positive action for BBM and Sara. Ang COMELEC ay hindi under sa Office of the President, sabi ni Guardians Mindanao. Walang kontrol ang Pangulo sa COMELEC. Ay, ito si Freeman. May I ask po who is the head commissioner for IT program in COMELEC? I'm not sure, but that's Googleable. I'm bothered about that kind of leader. He or she abuses and not secured the security and personal information. Pinabayaan yan. Here's my problem with your question. You're already assuming that a hacking has happened. Right now, wala pang investigasyon, so paano nyo nalaman yan? You only have the word of MB Tech. And this is where it's a learning moment for us. Madali tayong madala minsan naririnig natin isang panig pa lang. Mas maganda kung balanse yung naririnig natin at nakukuha nating impormasyon bago tayo gumawa ng konklusyon. Kita nyo to, remember what we said, na kapag galit tayo, mas madali tayong mamanipulate kasi hindi tayo nag-iisip. What if it was an opponent who was trying to do this? Trying to make you angry. Whether hacking or not had happened, galit ka na, nagdududa ka na sa proseso. Konti na lang sasabihin mo, ayoko nang bumoto kasi wala naman, hindi naman bibilangin yung boto ko. Paano mananalo yung kandidato mo ng ganyan? Paano mo nagano? And how can you rationalize? How can you argue if without any evidence you already accepted a single statement? Now, para sa akin, it hasn't been proven that a hacking incident has happened, nor has it been disproven. Let's see, that's why nananawagan tayo ng investigasyon so that we don't make conclusions na unwarranted. Kung naniniwala na kayo, ngayon pa lang na may hacking, that investigation is worthless. Kasi kahit anong lumabas dyan sa investigasyon, hindi nyo natatanggapin. At galit na kayo. And pag galit kayo, again, the manipulation, pag galit kayo, you will say that the process is has no integrity and so on. O paano mananalo yung kandidato ng ganyan? Ito, sabi ni Tintin dito sa SG na hack ng isang ospital, nakuha yung medical info ng mga patients, linked yun sa national ID. My point is, kahit gaano kagaling ang system, pag targeted ka, mahahack ka. So let's all vote. I love your optimism, madam. Sabi ni Ma'am Karen, if COMELEC will sue MB Tech team and maglabas sila ng proof, does this mean that the hackers were more clever enough to... Ma'am, bakit nila didemanda kung totoong nangyari? Di ba? Bakit nila ididemanda bago maglabas ng proof? Di ba? Alam nyo, even the ganito yan ha, um, it doesn't make sense for them to do that. But even if they do that, kahit na may ebidensya ang MB Tech team, yung paglalabas daw nila ng information to the public before ensuring that an investigation can be, kumbaga sabi daw nila, sinabi nila sa COMELEC pero hindi sila ininda. Ang sinasabi ng COMELEC, bakit pumunta kayo sa publiko? You should have given us an opportunity to check it out. Yun po ang magiging basehan dun sa pagdidemanda nila. Hindi po, and any person who or any lawyer, before filing, will of course make sure that bago ka magdemanda, meron kang right na pinoprotektahan at may damage na dun sa right na yon. Kung may pruweba yung MB Tech team, bakit nila ididemanda? Ibig sabihin, also, they won't have time. Well, they will have to address the issue. Ayan, Mang Boy of The Lost Samurai says, baka isisi niyo naman sa akin ang hacking na yan. Tinaga ko lang yung speaker. Labas na ako dyan. Ano daw? Anina Rubilipa asks, yes, the COMELEC is one of the, the major constitutional bodies. The Commission on Audit, the Commission on Elections, the Civil Service Commission, the big three. Ito, sabi ni Xavier, I'm very sure na ang mga lawyers ni BBM, including his political allies, will not just sit about the COMELEC issue. Bayaan na lang natin silang gumalaw about it. Kampanya lang tayo para kay BBM at Sara. And let's listen. Let's listen because BBM is actually leading already. You look at his statements. He's calling, this is actually a call for calm and sobriety. Let us not jump to conclusions. Let us wait for this, but let us call for an investigation by Congress and the COMELEC Steering Committee, who can attack the integrity of those two bodies jointly investigating. Okay? Listen, because it makes so much sense. Don't jump to conclusions yet. Wait for the evidence, because if the evidence is there, that's all the argument that is needed. Ito, so Mr. Predator says, I'm confident that BBM could win the elections. It shows on different surveys. I'm worried for Sarah. Possible she, hoping not, would be the victim of magkadayaan man. Let's vote for BBM Sarah. Well, ako, I'm confident also of that. I'm confident of the uni team. But it doesn't hurt for us to go all out and make sure that everyone in our household will go out and vote. Dito sa amin lahat ng BBM, solid, magkakaroon ng ID para madaling mabilang ang lahat ng boto pabor kay BBM. Mash ID says, I hope PRRD will consider Attorney Glenn Chang for the position as Commissioner in COMELEC. I do too. I do too. 3 days bago pa nilabas yung article, sinabihan na ng Manila Bulletin ng COMELEC about sa hacking. 3 days ha. Wala daw silang kilos kaya nilabas na ng Manila Bulletin yung article. But does it prove it? Does it prove that a hacking had in fact happened? It only says that the COMELEC might be negligent in dealing with the news that was delivered by the Manila Bulletin Tech team. But does that statement by itself prove the existence of a hacking? Does it? Does it? It doesn't. You still need evidence. There's evidence that the system will show. Pwede po bang mademanda mga sobrang bastos ang mga sinasabi kay BBM? Masyado na po kasing below the belt. Yes, but BBM will be the one to file that suit, not us. Walang right dun sa atin eh. Sa kanya yung right. Basta si Bautista ang nag-hack sa COMELEC, alam na niya lahat ng inside connection. Kung di pa nilabas ng MB Tech team yan, di natin malalaman. Hindi pa nga napapatunayan, madam. Ano yung nalalaman natin? Nalalaman lang natin na may allegation ng MB Tech team. Ma'am, what I'm teaching also is a discipline of the mind. That's also what the BBM is saying. We're not jumping to conclusions. If you hear from the MB Tech team, does that mean it actually happened? You have only the testimony of MB Tech team. It has not been cross-examined. It has not been tested. No evidence has been presented. Do you get what I'm saying? Yes, it's possible that a hacking actually happened. But right now, we don't know that. And that's what we're calling the discipline that is necessary for us. Huwag tayong madali maniwala because that means we're also going to be very easily manipulated. Wala pang presentadong ebidensya, naniwala na tayo. Why will we do that? Ayan. Ma'am Alice asks, if totoong may hacking na naganap, pwede po bang maging ground siya for no elections? No, ma'am. An election date is set by law and the law must be followed. Therefore, tuloy po talaga ang eleksyon unless that law is changed. Okay? And in order to do that, you have to answer the constitutional issues of a possible vacuum of the offices where the officials will have finished their terms. Ito, sabi ni Saldi Bonifacio, please note that information coming from MB Tech team as per their article was concise. But there are more details that were not shared yet due to the sensitivity of data. Again, what you're saying here presumes that all of this is true. Not yet shared due to sensitivity of data. Ganito ha, I believe that the MB Tech team will not take it to this extreme if they didn't have something. So there is something. I believe that the COMELEC might be, how do you call this? Still deciding or taking matters into their own hands and looking into the matter on their own. Kasi it would be hugely negligent for them to just brush it aside. I am certain that kahit paano, nagre-respond sila dyan. Now, what we have to do is wait for the evidence. Pag lumabas ang ebidensya, mapupuntirya din natin kung sino yung responsible for this. Or at least, we will have at least basis to go on. Second, if a hacking had in fact been discovered, this should be good news because it's happened early enough so that it can be addressed. Okay, I don't understand why you keep trying to change that. Why do you keep repeating the same questions? O ginost sila. Again, same question. Ginost sila ng COMELEC. Is that proof that a hacking happened? Your evidence has to relate to your assertion. Yung actions ng COMELEC doesn't prove for or against the existence of the hacking, but it could prove negligence on the part of the COMELEC. So let's separate those issues. We're not sure if a hacking has happened yet, although there is reasonable suspicion on our part. Okay? Reasonable suspicion because bakit gagawin ng MB Tech team to kung hindi wala silang at least maipapakita some kind of evidence. Diba? They won't make an assertion like this. It's too dangerous. And yes, they can be sued. On the other hand, we have not seen that evidence, and neither apparently has the COMELEC. And also, if we have issues with the COMELEC, then tama si BBM. Joint Congressional Oversight Committee and COMELEC ang mag-ascertain kung ano nangyari dito.
No.
Hi. Watched Sir Gus Lagman from NAMFEL.
What?
I'm live.
Sorry.
Gus Lagman from NAMFEL and former COMELEC commissioner, and he's saying na yung hacking na yan ay simpleng bagay lang. No problem daw manakaw ang address at pangalan ng botante if totoo man. Kasi kahit daw kapitbahay niya, alam naman pangalan at address niya. Well, that one, I don't agree. But, NAMFEL, okay, don't put too much weight on NAMFEL. They're the watchdog, but they're usually the watchdog for election day. I don't know what their obligations are during the election period. Para sa akin, I will take it with a grain of salt because, like I said, I haven't heard any evidence that he has presented for or against it. Mr. Samaniego says that it is impossible to provide proof without violating the Anti-Privacy Act. He said White Hats threatens to release the info if COMELEC will not admit to its system vulnerability. This happened in 2016, di ba? 2016. Nasa and it's floating out there. Voter information is floating out there. So, what do you want to happen? I'm very, very concerned about the alleged usernames and PIN passwords that were allegedly hacked. The voter information, it's happened in 2016. How it affects the electoral process, I'm not sure. But if you're talking about Anti-Privacy Act, it means that it is voter information and it is the voters who can give the information or who can give their consent to releasing that information. So, but what does that have to do with the integrity of the system? Yes, you can hack into voter information, and it has been done in 2016. Here's my point. Nobody sued in 2016. Why? Not even us, ha? And that's our information. Sabi ni Rain Mones, I get it. The COMELEC is presumed regular. Kaya if there's allegation of hacking, the MB has the burden to prove it. Correct. Ito, sabi ni Mamina, natawa naman ako dito kay Mamina. Kaya pala nag-walkout ang NAMFEL, nanalo pa rin ng Marcos. Actually, it was the computer encoders who walked out, hindi po NAMFEL. Philip Rojas says if they can steal info like that, it is telling us that they are willing enough. If they are willing enough, they can control any part of the system along with the counting results. Really? I don't think those two are related. Seriously, I don't think so. Or if they are, that's completely different. So maybe that's what they're trying to say. But here's the thing. If these white hats are saying something like that, then they are threatening not just us, they're threatening the elections and the electoral system. I would say that there are grounds enough to sue them. Mas sabihin nila, may vulnerabilities ito kaya hinak namin kayo. You still hacked. That's still a violation of the Data Privacy Act. So, if you're using this as evidence to say that the process, the electoral process, suffers from an integrity issue, I think that the integrity issue lies with the hackers. Why did you hack? Shu says hackers said they will release the data if COMELEC will not do something, according to Art Samaniego. Okay. In 2016, that's exactly what they did. Did any of us take action? What about the information and the evidence that was presented at the Senate and Congressional Committee hearings? Did it have anything to do with the hacking? Or was it about the system itself and Smartmatic? Are those two related? Why would the White Hats want to question the integrity of Smartmatic? Are they a bidder that lost? Uh, Let's find out. And that is my point. The point is, let's see the evidence. Sabi ni Cooking Dad, marami lang talagang nadala last 2016 elections, natulog lang may nanalo na. Zero votes in some cities in Mindanao kahit merong Iglesia ni Cristo, pero zero votes pa rin. Thief in the night. Okay? Again, I would ask that everybody think rationally here. Ganito ha, even in court, somebody comes in, inaakusahan siya. Ikaw, magnanakaw ka, ninakaw mo alahas ko. And my proof of that is that in 2016, nagnakaw ka ng alahas ng ibang tao. What do you think the verdict is going to be if that is the only evidence that you present? I'll give you a hint. It's going to be not guilty. It's not evidence kasi. Sabi ni Infested Jones, kinokontrata ng White Hats para makita ang butas sa system. So wala silang karapatan para mag-expose ng butas kasi may contract yan. Aha! That's actually a good point. Eto si Ma'am Ying, di ko nakita yun, no? Oo nga naman, pwedeng may ibang intent. Eto, sabi ni RJ, mali actually definition nila, white hats have the consent of the hack party. Oo nga naman. Ito, it's more of a gray hat. They don't have the consent, but their goals aren't for self-benefit. That's what we're assuming, or you're assuming right now. Kasi, but again, like I'm saying, is that this still is just all on the part of MB. We have not subjected that to testing or any form of cross-examination, and no evidence has yet been presented. But here's the thing. You're right about the white hats. May consent ng hack party. Now, itong mga gray hats, do you know that that hacking is already a crime, regardless of their intent? Because the law doesn't care about your intent. You hack the COMELEC website, sasabihin ninyo, it's to expose the vulnerabilities of the system. You could have told the COMELEC that at the get-go. Why didn't you? Saldi Bonifacio says hackers are here to stay, just like COVID. Institutions, both private and government's responsibility is secure their systems, and let's not assume that hackers should not hack. Good point, Len. Another good point. Yeah, you're right. You're right. All systems will be tested. And you're right. But does that necessarily mean that we now cannot trust the system? Paano yan? Leading yung kandidato natin. Sabi ni R. Jane Santana, good to hear. We are shaping and always vigilant about this issue. Yup, our emotional kills the ignorance of speculations. Kaya kinig muna ako sa'yo. Yep. But, eto once evidence surfaces that a hacking has in fact been committed and the COMELEC appears to have not done anything about it, I think it's time to start screaming at them. Literally screaming at them. O ba, 'di ba? Pwede ba naman 'yan yung mga tipong, nahack kami. Okay lang. Di rin. Eto, Leo Mauricio. There was a hearing on this which Attorney Glenn Chong exposed, but they stopped the hearing and played deaf on all his accusations, even with strong evidence presented. I'm assuming that you're talking about the Senate hearing. Um, what did you want them to do? And is there an obligation on the part of the Senate to do something? Even the Supreme Court cannot compel the Senate to create a law if they don't feel like creating a law. Yun nga yung problema natin. Eh. So, what are you saying here? Na who is at fault? Who can we sue? Who can we blame for this? I mean, we can get righteously angry because there's a problem here with this law. There's a problem with the Omnibus Election Code. There's a problem with, at that time, it wasn't hacking. Sir Leo, I disagree. You're on a different tangent altogether. This was about the cheating in 2016 where BBM was the victim. This has nothing to do with the hacking now, supposedly of information, voters' information. So see there's the problem with the thinking. Masyadong nire-relate even if they are still yet unrelated. Wala pa tayong nexus. Ito sabi ni D. Salakop, kung sisirain natin ang integrity ng electoral process, the opposition might use this to favor what they want. Mamaya kahit manalo si BBM, they can use the hacking incident to declare failure of elections. No, 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 nobody. Nobody can declare a failure of elections. No party. Only the COMELEC. And the courts can uphold or not that. Okay? They don't, no. No. But they can cast doubts. Sabi ni IJ, kung pumatay ako ng tao, bakit ko sasabihin na mamamatay tao ko? Ganon din sa hacker. Bakit ako mag-iingay na hacker ako? Sabi nila, white hat hacker daw sila. AO de Guzman says, I think because COMELEC is not as open as they should be. Good point. I agree with that, ha? I agree with that. In denial pa nga nung umpisa nung nag-publish ang Manila Bulletin at saka lang kumilos to investigate ko, no? Ako, I will assume that that's true for the moment. Wala kasi silang nilagay sa statement nila na meron na silang ginagawa in the past 3 days. Pero they issued a statement saying they're verifying. Ito si Francis Cayetano. Alam mo yung sagot nito or you should because I've talked about it for like a million times. Nag-prosper ba criminal case versus Andy Bautista on the data breach? No, the NBI is dragging its feet on it up to now. Okay, ay, on the data breach, kaya natatawa nga ako dun sa mga nagsasabing, hindi pwede mag-imbestiga ang COMELEC dyan, dapat NBI. Talaga yung NBI na hindi humuli kay Andy Bautista, yun ang paiimbestiga natin? Really? Sige. Because we cannot presume that they're going to do the same thing, pero sige. Sabi ni Noor, sana mag-create agad ng investigasyon. I think they will naman. At hulihin ang hacker, kasuhan at ipakulong. Kasi palagay ko magkaroon ng sabotage sa elections, lalo na leading ang ating mga iboboto. Here's the question. Some hackers are really good. What if hindi mahuli? Gagamitin yan. Gagamitin tong info na to. Ayun nga, nahack nga eh. How do we know tama yung susunod na elections? Tama! No L, no L, no L. Siyempre, kasi leading si BBM, sasabihin ng kabila, no L, no L. That's what I'm worried about, guys. Eh. I'm really worried about that one. That's at the topmost of my mind. Ito, sabi ni Josh Doctolero, may vulnerability pa din sa hybrid elections, especially sa transmission ng figures from precinct level. Why not manual na lang uli para mabantayan natin? Ano sa tingin mo? Yeah, but I'd like to reiterate that the truth is, in other areas, they're already discussing a return to manual voting. But again, it will require law. Kasi yung automated elections, batas yan eh. Sabi ni Christian, means that, yung nangyayaring hacking ngayon sa COMELEC means Andy Bautista is in the building. Sino po pwedeng magpa-impeach sa mga COMELEC commissioners? There's only one method of impeachment and that goes through Congress. As for the preliminary hearing, di pa ba sapat ang medical certificate at need pa i-notarize? Nasa rules of court po ang notarized medical certificate, ma'am. Matagal na po yung rule. It is not a big deal. Somebody is manipulating this and making it look like it's a big deal na hindi na pinapanotarize yan. Yes, it is naturally and normally a notarized document. You cannot submit it in court if it is not notarized. That rule was passed in, I forgot what year. I think 20 something. Sorry. But yes, in the ordinary course of business, in the regional trial courts, medical certificates must be notarized. So let's not make a big deal out of it. It is normally notarized. Ma'am Myra says there is a possibility we really need assurance for it not to happen again. That is why ang panawagan ni BBM is convene the COMELEC Steering Committee and Joint Congressional Oversight Committee. Sabi ni Mark Anthony de los Reyes, is everyone familiar about Black Hat? A Black Hat hacker is a hacker who violates computer security for their own personal profit or out of malice. Is White Hat really the opposite of Black Hat? You tell me. Sekinol Murillo says, what if kung barcode ang gamitin sa pagboto? You know what I can say to everything that you propose, but again, it will require a law and we don't know if that will be, there's enough time. We know that there is not enough time to do it for these next elections. In the meantime, kung magpo-propose kayo ng ganyan and you end up frustrating yourselves and other people because it cannot be done, what good is this going to do? We can make proposals for the next elections. But remember, the hybrid election law, the bill, was also proposed by Senator Aimee, hindi nakapasa. So, what makes you think that any proposal that you make right now is going to have any effect whatsoever? Paul Brian ko says, Ma'am, di po ba bago tumakas sa papunta sa USA, pumunta si Andy Bautista sa USA, nag-meet sila ni PRRD, di kaya nagkaroon ng deal sila, kaya PRRD was never in the US? Oh, how do you know this? I've heard news of this but no evidence to that. Di kaya nagkaroon ng deal sila kaya di hinuli ng NBI? Just asking. Ito yung tanong ko. So what? What good does that do to us now? What does it how does this relate to the alleged hacking incident? It's good to think how all of these come together. But do we have any evidence that they all come together and to what end? Sabi ni Dame Jove, as regards the question on how would the voters' info benefit the opposition, they could make use of the info if they plan to come up with pre-filled up ballots like they previously did. Ganito ha, the pre-filled up ballots will only work for these elections if those filled up ballots are going to be read or they're going to provide evidence subsequent, like in the case of BBM. What happened? Pinabuksan yung mga ballot boxes. Those ballot boxes could have held evidence to indicate that the actual votes and the counted votes of the vote counting machines were not the same. Ano nangyari? Binasa. 'Di ba? Para walang balota na mabibilang. So yung mga pre-filled up ballots work usually pagka ganyan, pagka may electoral protest. So why will they do that now? Wala pa yung eleksyon eh. For the electoral protest? Bakit? Sino bang mananalo? Uh, may I ask if the ordinary Filipino person, people, or group can propose a bill and submit to Congress and support? Yes, they can. There is a law that allows us to do that, but you need something like first 2% of the voting population to be able to make a proposal and something like 10% for it to pass. I have to review. But yes, we can. But it requires a lot of people to do that. Ito, sabi ni Rod Martejero, sa bagay, sa sobrang popular ng Yumi team, how can a supposed cheating beat that? Basta happy lang din na pang third na si Lenny sila. Sa latest story. Thank you kay Rod Martejero. Grabe ang tawa ko sa'yo. Ito si Apricot. Ah, ang ending kasalanan naman ni PRRD. Tanso thinking. Grabe kayo. Eto, Ma'am Marites Corpus, nakaka-frustrate naman lagi na lang may dayaan nagmula pa ng 2010. Ito yung mga tanong ko eh. Ah, sometimes, di ba, we have freedom of speech, so we can really say anything that we want. Pero sometimes, iniisip ko, ano yung purpose sa pagsabi mo niyan? Naintindihan ko for venting. Okay, frustrated, vent, vent, vent. I'm angry, angry, angry. I'm suspicious, choo, choo, ganyan. But remember that everything you put out there has an effect, ha? And make sure you're not unintentionally helping out Lenny, ha? Yun lang. Yun lang ang inaalala ko. Baka sa kakareklamo natin ng ganito, eh, ano, matulungan natin si Lenny, nakakaloka. Ito I like this, oh. Sabi ni GQ Leonardo, what we need to do is convince the undecided, madami-dami pa yan, or just convince others not to vote Lenny and her slate. Oy, ang specific, Lenny talaga. Sorry, sorry. Okay, pero tama na ba yan? Okay. Um, Pwede po ba may private individual to witness the investigation on alleged security breach sa COMELEC? Yung panawagan po ni BBM, Joint Congressional and COMELEC. So public po talaga yan. Kung merong hearing type. If not, yung pag-iimbestiga, it will depend on really how they're going to conduct it. Pero yung oversight, that's usually by hearing in the Senate or in the House. Sabi ni George Calderon, ibo mo sabihan, attorney, quiet na lang tayo kahit may news ng dayaan at hacking. May sinabi ba akong ganon? Ha? Again, could you please not put words into my mouth because it's so unsanitary? Kakaloka. What I'm saying is that you watch what you're saying. Because, and we take our cue from BBM. We can say, manawagan tayo, oy, COMELEC, mag-imbestiga naman kayo. And Senate and House, tigil-tigilan nyo na nga yung formally na yan. Ito ang mas importante ninyong imbestigahan. Instead of just, so that we can restore faith in the system. Hindi yung tutulungan nyo pa si Lenny na naku, may problema talaga yung sistema. Siyempre, in the lead si BBM. So talaga para sa kanya may problema yung sistema. Lani Cervantes says, just vote on election day and keep your heads cool. Avoid doing anything para ma-forfeit ang boto ninyo. As a former, Board of Electoral Inspectors pala si Ma'am Lani dati. Pero not this time. I wonder kung paano magbe-behave ang poll watchers ni Lenny. Oo nga naman. Lalo-lalo na, ang hirap na napupunta ka doon, alam mo, dehado na kagad yung, yung, yung manok mo. Jerlyn, kahit positive isipin natin, nakaka-frustrate lang tong COMELEC. I agree. Pray na lang tayo na di mga ibabaw. Hindi rin naman pray lang. Kasi agree ako dun sa panawagan ni BBM. Ang sinasabi niya is, kailangan mag-convene, kailangan mag-imbestiga. Pero kung ngayon pa lang sasabihin niyo ay walang kwenta yung COMELEC na yan, sila nga ang unang mag-iimbestiga dyan, paano tayo? O ano ngayon? Regardless pala of the investigation, meron na kayong pinaniniwalaan. Di, bakit pa? Bakit pa tayo mananawagan? Hindi lang pray. Puwede naman tayo mag-ano, discuss. Pero again, let's be rational about it. Sabi ni BBM, "I will not jump to conclusions." Wag rin tayo. Pero the moment lumabas ang ebidensya, bakbakan 'to. Xiao Shu says, as far as I can understand it, based on Sir Art's interviews, the White Hat hackers only told him about the vulnerabilities in COMELEC cybersecurity, and his objective is for COMELEC to probe on their end, which is good. Like in October 2015, they warned COMELEC about breaching their security as well. Simple analogy na sinabi ni TP, it's like someone warned you that the door in your sari-sari store is open. That's it. Oh, see? Napaka-rational din ni TP, oh, tignan nyo. Ito, it is a reason for the COMELEC to look into it. Pero like I said, mas gusto ko na merong Congressional Joint Committee investigating along with the COMELEC. Bakit? Binabakbakan na nga yung credibility ng COMELEC eh. So, kailangan meron ding oversight yung Joint Congressional Committee. And hopefully, hindi sila mag-grandstanding doon. Sabi ni Joy Mansilla, ba't hindi pa nagre-retire si Comweng? May term po ang commissioners and her term ends in February. Naman na, no? I was a BEI din last 2016 election, sabi ni GQ Leonardo. Mararamdaman mo doon kung sino yung malakas sa presidential balls. Kaya tiwala tayo na inidoro na naman ang kabilang parlor. Ito, sabi ni Ma'am Pinay, hala, number 3 na lang si SVP Lenny sa survey. Sino yung gumawa ng survey? Ay, okay. Sige, sige. Ma'am Ling says nasanay na majority ng mga Pilipino to attack o maging hot-headed and jump to conclusions. When, not if, BBM Sara finally win, matututo ang Pinas to digest things before mag-comment. Kasi kaya nga gustong-gusto ko yung unity team eh. Kasi rational sila mag-react. Hindi yung emotional. Alam naman natin sino yung mga emotional dyan, di nag-iisip. Sila, inaaral nila yung sagot. So look at PBM, di ba? We won't jump to conclusions, pero mananawagan tayo ng investigasyon, which is the way things should be conducted. Hindi yung, how dare you? Meron na nga hacking, may report na nga ng hacking, wala kang ginagawa. Hindi. What good will it do for BBM na awayan ng COMELEC? Nothing, di ba? So, because there are remedies in the law to address certain issues. So tingnan mo, tanging siya at saka I think Senator Manny lang ang nagsabi na, joint congressional investigation. Kailangan 'yan. Not just for to find out what happened, which is also very important, but also para mapalagay ang loob ng taong bayan doon sa integrity ng electoral process. Sabi ni way I see it is like this. Yung huling survey na sumusunod lang si Lenny kay Isko, mas maganda kasi mas may competence and intelligence si Isko kaysa kay Lenny on any issues na hinaharap sa kanila. Mas credible si Isko. Siguro, comparatively, at least kasi he came from a position na executive, meron talaga siyang ginagawa. But for me, far second to a uni team. Si MJ mamawag. Here's what we need to do. 1, go out and vote BBM Sara. 2, tell your families and relatives to vote for BBM Sara. Number 3, forget about Lenny, Isko, Pacman, and Ping. Well, soon enough, mababaon na rin sila sa limot. Okay, guys, hindi ako palo dun sa mga panawagan ninyo ng people power because sa totoo lang, sila lang ang nag-legitimize nun. But a rebellion really is still a rebellion and still punishable by the revised penal code. And inciting to rebellion is still a crime. Ito, sabi ni Francie, last two questions. Lagonera, I just remember Socrates' triple filter, truth, goodness, usefulness. If neither is true nor good nor useful, then why should we be affected? And if it does, surely BBM and Sarah Camp are doing something about it. Let's do our part to vote, be firm and rational. It's the least that we can do. I love how sensible so many of you are. Bakit kasi inungkat pa ang 4 times pa? Teka, nabigla ako doon. Nauungusan tuloy ni Isko si Lenny. Bakit kahit gano'n ay statistically tayo pa rin ang laban para sa number 2? Tapos ang layo pa rin. Sorry, sorry. Uh, one more. RJ in Santa Ana says mainstream media later around 6:30 they serve other dinner meals for those who are close to their minds and cramming the emotions. Vigilant kasi, make it smarter than grade 5. Sabi ni Nick Borromeo, okay, uulitin ko po ito. Di po kaya kayo nahihirapan magbasa ng mga comments dito parang kailangan nyo ng reading glasses? Hindi po. Kaya nga po ako lumalapit kasi nearsighted ako. Ang reading glasses kailangan para makabasa. Hindi ko kailangan ng salamin para magbasa. Tinatanggal ko nga po yung salamin ko para magbasa. Okay? So, why would you think that you would know this better than I would kung ako yung nagpapa-eye check? Thank you very much, sabi ni Chev. Pinakalma niyo po kami uli sa panibagong issue. You deserve to be put on sainthood. Dapat shortlisted na. Okay? Alright. So, i-recap natin yan. Ang panawagan ni BBM is simple. He will not jump to conclusions that will undermine the preparations, the integrity, and the preparations for the next elections. But he calls for an investigation with the convening of the COMELEC Steering Committee and of a joint congressional oversight committee. O, sila ang tumingin dito. And this is a good suggestion kasi hindi natin papaubayan na sa COMELEC lang kasi baka magduda pa rin ng mga tao dyan, di ba? So, we will also want the joint committee on oversight because if ever, pwede nilang sabihan yung COMELEC to create rules pursuant to the Omnibus Election Code. Pwede pong gawin yan ng oversight committee. Or if there is time to come up immediately with legislation that could address the problems here. So, we're not saying not to be vigilant, and we're not saying that we should shut up, but we should think rationally based on available evidence. Now, a single statement that has no evidence has no value or very little value. It's an opinion like anything else. And even if they say other things like sumulat kami and all of that, hindi pa rin napapatunayan ng mga statements na yun whether or not a hacking has been committed and if that hacking relates to passwords or PIN numbers and usernames. Yun talaga yung dapat natin binabakbakan. If that happened, oh my gosh, it goes right into the heart of the electoral process. So, some action is called for. And if walang action on the part of the COMELEC and of Congress and the Senate, then there is reason for us to start screaming at them. The fault will lie in these bodies if they ignore it. But if they say there is nothing to worry about, then they must tell us why we should not be worried about what has been happening. They should give us the information that will allow us to make a more rational appreciation of what is going on. Okay? Take a cue from the as usual the ever intelligent attorney Vic Rodriguez and BBM. when they have called for not jumping to conclusions yet, but an investigation will give us more information, and then we can base our opinions on that information. Remember also that angry people can be manipulated, and some information is brought out precisely to make us angry, to make us easily manipulated, or even to check just how quickly we're going to believe in these things. As always, we take note of it, be watchful, but always act based on evidence. Okay? Evidence na diretso. Right? Okay, maraming salamat. Natagalan na naman ng live. I keep trying to keep it down to under an hour pero humahaba na humahaba na naman. Okay? And please, if you're going to make suggestions, yung hindi the ones that would serve a purpose. Negative example, do Og Lakay says, shut down existing COMELEC and put up a new one. You can't. Okay, COMELEC commissioners, although they are appointed according to the Constitution, they can only be removed by impeachment. And do you think that there is time to conduct impeachment now? There is none. So they can only be impeached by Congress and removed after a trial in the Senate. So yung mga ganitong panawagan, while they can give us emotional release, it might make other people angry and it becomes a crowd where nobody can give them what they want because the law doesn't allow it. Let's talk, but let's talk rationally. Let's make conclusions, but make those conclusions based on evidence. We have good examples to emulate. BBM statement is one of those good examples. Okay? So, as always, be watchful. And yes, of course, makinig tayo dun sa mga tao may impormasyon. But also be very careful that they are not trying to lead us to a certain conclusion. Let's think for ourselves. Again, the prime example here is the person who says they're not going to jump to conclusions, but they call for an investigation. Maraming salamat. Sabi ni Scorpius, you mustn't keep your lives under an hour because we want longer lives. Fine, fine, fine. Okay. Maraming salamat. Oy, huwag kakalimutan, like and share para dun sa mga naka-follow sa Facebook natin. Paki-check po kung naka-follow pa rin kayo. Baka na-unfollow na ko yun ng Facebook. Paki-check na lang po and follow again. Uh, I'll make a short video about medical certificates and why the discussion sometimes is being led astray by yung mga, kunwari, galit dyan kay BBM. Pero actually, hindi naman, again, rational at hindi based on, yung reasonableness that the law always takes into consideration. Sige, maraming salamat. Everybody, have a good rest kasi may karambola pa bukas, 8 to 10 ng umaga sa DWIZ 882 AM. See you, don't forget subscribe din sa our YouTube channel namin. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Good night. Hindi po mainit ang ulo ko. Nagiging emotional lang. Maraming salamat. Reactionary. Pasensya na po. Maraming salamat. Good night.